What's going on, you guys? I was about ready to do a workout, then I realized a good video idea that I think might help some of you guys out, especially with the holidays coming up. Maybe you guys are thinking about picking one of these up for you or somebody else, and maybe you want to know how these things have been holding up. So I'm going to give you guys kind of an update video on the integrity of the machine. I'll also talk a little bit about some maintenance, which I haven't done that too much on the channel, but not just basic maintenance of the machine, but also some things to avoid that I did. I'm learning from my own mistakes here, or you guys can learn from my mistakes of some things not to really abuse this machine too much and let it last a little bit longer. If you guys do watch my channel, you guys know I've been pretty much just using this machine exclusively. I've been doing a lot of the sliding bench trainers stuff, for the last year and a half consistently as the only form of exercise. This has been pretty much my go-to machine. I've had this for, I think going on 9 months, so not a full year, but you can see from somebody who really beats the heck out of this thing, I really don't baby this thing at all whatsoever, how this thing is kind of holding up. So I'll jump in with that first, then I'll talk a little about some maintenance things, and mixed in with that I'll talk about some little wear and tear things that I kind of been seeing a little bit now, so I can, hopefully you guys don't avoid these mistakes and you guys can get the longest longevity out of this machine as possible. And before I get into this, so guys, briefly, if you guys do like this content, as always, please consider liking and subscribing. If you guys are gonna think about picking one of these up for somebody, there's also some links in the description box, which also helps support the channel, and that's always greatly appreciated. Everything I say here is completely honest. I'm not getting endorsed by Total Gym to say anything despite what some people think. I do love this product, no question, but just so you guys know, everything I do and everything I promote on this channel is always my honest opinion. So let's jump right into it. I will just say this, everything is pretty much running exactly how it was. And again, considering, I was trying to reiterate the fact that this is from someone who's really beaten this thing up, and it's someone who's actually using it on a consistent basis. And my wife also uses this one as well. Couple little things, I addressed this in the last couple of videos, I've been noticing when doing it, is really avoiding pulling on this area of the glide board. There's some fabric that is ripping in here, and I'll show you this in a second. But this fabric is ripping a lot more so, I think, because there was times where I'd have resistance bands on, and instead of taking the bands off, I lazily would just kind of pull it. So that most likely was the cause for this, but I could still see over time, especially at a certain incline, if you're just ripping on this thing and pulling up to detach or attach the middle pulley, I would avoid doing that because some stitching is going to come off. Again, it's minor stuff. But since we're on that topic, all of this vinyl covering, if anything I'm worried about is this kind of ripping and tearing. And honestly, it's totally good. Everything looks good with this. There's no problems whatsoever with this glide board or stitching coming off, which I'm really happy, especially considering that you're on an incline. You're always kind of pulling at one end of a downward kind of slope, and I would think over time this might rip it. The stitching on this end is really fine. It's really, like I said, up here where I'm was yanking up on this top portion. Looking at the tower height side of the machine, honestly, everything is looking pretty good. There's nothing really to talk about or discuss. Minor just scuffing for me just using it. Nothing too big of a deal. Pulleys, I should say the cabling is really good. Over time, these things will wear over time, and I forget the actual tested strength these things have, but Total Gym has boasted that these are basically very strong cabling. My old Weed Ultimate Bodyworks that I had, that frayed like crazy. I actually got in the background if I'd show it to you, but that is broken and frayed like it's nobody's business. This thing is holding up strong. I expect a lot of life still out of these, but you can always do an easy replacement for that. That's not a big deal. The actual rollers themselves, these are things you have to check over time as well, making sure they move smoothly. These things also are running totally fine. Now bear in mind, I did replace the carabiner clips. I have the original twist-on clips up there, so these are, I won't comment on those, but the Total Gym grips are still just awesome. There's absolutely no wear in this. I've said this before in other videos that I used to recommend, and I purchased other handles from my other sliding bench trainers when I had them. These Total Gym grips, or I keep saying grips, these handles feel really good. They have a good grip. Excellent quality. This fabric here is going strong. Even this little metal clip here, people don't pay attention to this, but I've had cheaper handles that this little metal piece here starts to warp and bend. But excellent quality. These feel really good in your hands. These still are, in my opinion, awesome. I thought I'd have to actually replace these, and I didn't. So these are actually doing really good. One thing I was gonna point out to avoid, but honestly, it might not even be caused from this, was I thought these little holes were kind of getting worn in a little bit. Honestly, I think they're pretty much fine. But what I meant was, when you have these pins in, you're locking in the pull-up bars or inverted presses, whatever, and I was doing my elevated pulls and presses, I actually thought I was kind of digging and making this hole bigger. If you guys look down here at this bottom setting, I thought that was kind of wearing. Maybe you could see it over there as well, but honestly, it might be nothing. And I thought just the point was going to tell you guys, maybe be careful from doing these inverted presses and pulls at those high elevations, which I already try and tell you guys this to really don't try what I'm trying. I'm really trying to putting this thing to the extreme. But point is, I thought this might be a problem. But when I took the glide board off and I saw that these holes, which pretty much rarely get used, I did some tricep bar dips and stuff like that. You can see again little divots here. I don't know if this was like this at the time. I didn't spend too much attention to it. Granted, I was using the Great Flex dip bars, so that could be a case too. They weren't perfectly kind of fitted in there. But the point is, be mindful of that these holes, if you're putting a lot of pressure on the pins, some extreme pressure, or maybe you're using some attachments, or maybe the pins that don't fit the particular model, that could be an issue. Looking at the actual looking at the model with the thing taken off, I recognize that some people may never take this thing off because maybe they're older or they're disability or whatever. Taking this thing off might be a little cumbersome, but the point is, very simple design. There's not a whole lot to really worry about. Total Gym has talked about using just like a wet rag or water cloth, maybe with Windex, to kind of wipe down this buildup that can kind of, dust and debris can kind of build up some little residue. Honestly, I'm not finding too much, but you can see it's a slight little darker color that maybe if I wipe this down, that might play a difference. So maybe going ahead and doing that. I've actually had this problem with a Concept 2, where you guys can see this thing can kind of get filthy fast. Concept 2, you see it'll get these little like black spots, and that's just, again, from the same deal. You're constantly kind of rolling, a lot more clicks on this, but you can see even that dirt that builds up on the roller, like dust and debris. I mean, I'm not sure, I never really get that off, but Concept 2 has always talked about basically the same thing. You got a lot of the same rollers. This is a lot dirtier, and I do this a little more frequently. But another thing that you could do is, if you just got like, and I've heard people say this, especially with these, if you just have like, if you're sweaty, this is going to apply to the Total Gym as well. It's my point. If you're like sweaty, you got a sweaty shirt on, whatever, slightly kind of damp, after your workout, take your shirt off, use that, and kind of wipe this down. And wipe down your Total Gym rails the same way. This is a little darker, so I'm not sure if that's a big deal or not, but here's that little flap I was talking about. Not really a big deal, but that is kind of wearing a little bit. As far as the actual glide board, nothing really. My rollers are still looking pretty good, in my opinion. These rollers will eventually roll out. They will get kind of flat. And you will know when they have to roll out because they'll be making like a hard noise. But when these things get really flat, it'll feel uneasy. It'll feel kind of rickety and stuff like that. And you'll know that it's time to replace the rollers. But again, as of right now, again, we're not even into a year yet, so I guess we wouldn't expect that. But as of now, my rollers, I think, are doing pretty good. All this metal here is holding up, again, considering that I strap resistance bands to the top part over here, and even this is holding up. Not that it's not recommended to do that, but I'm just showing you that metal is pretty strong, considering someone that really beats this up and will attach resistance bands to here. It hasn't been pulling too much. Overall, the glide board, you can see, looks really good in my opinion. I never even wipe this thing down, which I definitely should. There was a scratch here, I thought, when I first got it. I think it was right there. That was for me, but point is, that's kind of fading away too. Otherwise, I think this thing feels and looks pretty good. I don't have any problems with this whatsoever. Again, to kind of clean this, same thing with some Windex, some light cloth, whatever kind of light, mild disinfectant I think would be good for this. But that's why I like this vinyl versus some stuff that's out there in the market is kind of a cheaper covering. And I meant to mention this before, if it's like a fabric, I don't like that. This at least kind of does not retain sweat, so that's a good thing. All right, and then one thing to kind of be mindful about too is the rollers. So this is the top part of the machine. This is the top that you can see. See how that's kind of chipped and dinged up. And that's one thing I think you can get by with chipping and dinging this up, but I'll show you in a second. You would not want to chip and ding up the middle piece. And how this happens basically is, I'll show you in a second. Okay, so how this happens is maybe you're doing like pull-ups and you got your pin in here and then you're pulling and then you're pulling and then this, you want to avoid that. For the most part, it'll hit the outer side, which is why you saw those bumps there. But you definitely want to avoid not dinging up that middle because that will make the rolling essentially just less smooth. And then something else to show you now, the pins are actually holding up really well. Now this is the Total Gym. This is a Total Gym pin. I tried to double check this in my initial review video. Here was a Great Flex pin, and you can see that Great Flex metal really started to kind of bend and warp. To be fair, again, I'm not sure what I was doing when this bent. It could have been something extreme, but my point of showing you this is I use the Total Gym frequently. The original stock pins that came with the fit, still nice and solid, nice and straight pins. So that's good. It says something about that integrity. I don't know what was going on here. I can't say for sure it was because of that, but point is you can warp pins, and knowing that I use these pretty consistently, it's a good sign that this pin, at least this pair that came with the Total Gym fit, worked pretty well. Now another good thing that's been holding up really well is the squat stand. You can see the squat stand really isn't wearing too much. I would assume there's gonna be some sort of, like, this metal isn't, you know, like alien technology where it's not gonna like bend or anything like that. Eventually this will kind of give a little bit, but I don't have my Great Flex is actually at my nephew's right now, but I don't know if you can, it doesn't do it justice, but point is this still stands pretty straight. The Great Flex squat stand really did bend and give, and that's gonna make sense again when you kind of consider that for me, I do a lot of stuff with heavy bands. I'm putting a lot of counter pressure against this. And so again, this is somebody who's using it at its extreme. It's not really meant for it. And considering that the Total Gym squat stand is still holding up really nicely, I think that's really good. I heard a story from somebody, and again, I'm not sure what model that was, where like the metal here broke off on when they were doing certain presses or whatever. I think it was a less expensive model. I don't even know if it was a Total Gym. I'm just telling you guys that someone said that this was a possibility that could kind of come off. And then overall, there's nothing really else I'd really add. I would showcase and show you guys the attachments, but there really isn't too much to say. I mean, there's some little, you know, fraying here, but that's hard to say that was from the me using it. It could have been I put it down in some metal, threw it in the bin of my attachments and kind of banged it up, but otherwise, everything I covered, I think everything is good. All the attachments that came with the model are perfectly, just basically brand new. Again, considering these probably get the most amount of use, and I do like this attachment compared to other model attachments that I have. I end up using these a lot, and they are just as good as when I bought them. So hopefully that gives you guys a little insight into the wear and tear of the machine, little things about maintenance, little things to be mindful of and to avoid. And hopefully by me making this video, I'll teach myself a lesson and do more maintenance and be more mindful how to take care of this machine. But with that being said, guys, hopefully you guys found this video helpful. This video might be up on Black Friday, which I think I'm going to release it. So maybe look for some sales that are out there. I'll put links in the description box as always, and thanks for watching.